Here we go. Let's
Ladies
go.
and gentlemen,
Huh?
I told you when I first started, I was gonna bring you the biggest names in the game. It's been a long time coming. Tonight we have a special edition of the HBCU experience. Vote Your Best Life with LJ Holloway. She's an Edward Waters College alumnus. She's running for U.S. Congress, the 5th Congressional District. She's out of Jacksonville, Florida. I go by the name of the Entertainer. Like I tell people all the time, support me. Follow me on all social media platforms at Entertainer and even on Cash App. The reason why we're here today is because LJ Holloway is running for U.S. Congress. What district? The 5th Congressional District. I met her over 10 years ago. We both had a love for HBCUs. We both were on the Tom Joyner Fantastic Voyage. And there's a true saying when you never know who you're sitting with. You never know who you next to. You never know who you're going to network with. Because I saw 5 strangers. And the only thing I asked them was, can I sit with you? I didn't know I would be sitting with a future congresswoman. I didn't know I'd be sitting with one of the most inspirational attorneys that's on television right now. Benjamin Crump and Daryl Parks. I didn't know I'd be sitting with Natalie Jackson, who's worked with Trayvon Martin. I didn't know I'd be sitting with Coco Brown, who did the sundress, who did a lot of things at FAMU and throughout the world of entertainment. So it's a blessing. How you doing today, Ms. LJ?
I'm doing well, Derrick. You know, it's always good to physically see you. Although our partnership is active every day and has been active for almost 10 years, with today's honoree, it's always an honor to actually see Derrick Entertainer Hayes.
You know, you gotta if you're gonna stay relevant, you gotta reinvent.
That's right.
And this is LJ Holloway, and her website is LJForCongress.com. She's running for U.S. Congress. Once again, we got to let you know this because sometimes you say, we don't know who's running. We don't know who's doing what. And she's running for the 5th Congressional District. She's out of Jacksonville, Florida. So tonight, through the word vote, we're going to share her vision. We're going to talk about how others can get involved. She's going to teach you on what do you have to do even if you're not registered to vote and what we got to make out of these elections. Let's get into this, LJ. Tell the world, what is your vision? The V is for vision. What is your vision?
My vision, Derrick, is not just for people in the 5th Congressional District, but for people in the United States of America to make sure that America shapes to her promise that we actually form a more perfect union. You know, like I know, when we were in elementary school or middle school, whenever, you learned the preamble to the Constitution, it says, we, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union. Because we know the union is not perfect. And we know that, in most schools, people recite the pledge and we ask children to say, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And we know the country is divided. And we know that for Black and brown people, you don't see liberty and justice. So that is my vision. But more importantly, I want all people to feel like they can be whatever they see. I remember when Barack Obama was elected and how my mother cried because she never thought she would see a Black president. Well, children who were born after 2008, they've seen a Black president. But the harsh reality is, in many of our cities around this country, we're still seeing first. In Jacksonville, we've never elected an African-American female judge. And in this newly drawn 5th Congressional District, look, I'm hoping to be a United States Congresswoman. But more importantly, I always tell people that when we win, when I get to Congress, I will no longer use my initials of LJ. LaShonda is going to Congress because people around the country need to know that LaShonda is coming to Congress.
Hey, LaShonda sound like Wakanda.
That's
But
right.
but but even more importantly, they gotta know that you're a true gem. Cause that's why the J is for jewel. You
That's
know,
right.
see when you have a jewel, that's a intellectual tool.
And
See?
Jewel, indeed, I'm a fourth generation. Well, actually, I'm the fifth Jewel, but I'm the fourth woman. My great grandfather's name was Jewel, and he named his daughter Jewel, and she named her daughter Jewel. And my father, of course, named me Jewel after his mother. So actually, I'm the fifth Jewel, but the fourth woman to be named Jewel. And little known Black history fact, because you are from Georgia, I can share that my grandfather, Jewel Williams, he was the principal, and there was a school in Commerce, Georgia, named after him, Jewel Williams Elementary School.
Wow. That sounds like that's gonna be a book coming up. You know,
Hey,
called the
I've been
fifth.
for so long, Derrick. I have, of course, I'm published, of course, but I'm so busy trying to
Yeah,
make a life for the people of the 5th Congressional District. Look, I just haven't had time to
yeah.
really,
Because
but I've been quite some time.
that book would be called The Fifth Jewel.
Hey, no, well, the book is What to Do When Being Faithful Becomes Frustrating. That's the next book, but I believe the fifth jewel because it is the 5th Congressional District. You might be right. That sounds like a title, Derrick. I think you got something there. That might be
Okay.
the
Right. The O is for others. How
That's
can
right.
others support your vision and help you carry it out?
Well, the first thing is you have to understand that it's not my vision. It's actually a government is only as strong as the people who are engaged in it. The government should be representative of the people. And so I want people to understand that even when I win and go to Congress, I should be serving the people and serving the will of the people. So it's not what LJ wants. It's, we complain all the time. Well, I don't complain because I'm actively engaged and civically engaged. But the people complain all the time about what politicians don't do. And I always say, I've never held a political office. I work for a politician, but I am a servant leader. And I plan to go to Washington and work inside the Beltway and work for the people. But more importantly, what people can do is, one, make sure that not only that they're registered to vote, but make sure that they choose a party. I'm finding that a lot of people are not affiliated with a party, and in Florida we call that NPA. And so in anything, even in the Bible, it says be hot or cold, don't be lukewarm. You have to pick a side. I mean, and I know some people are frustrated with both parties, but the harsh reality is, Derrick, we have to choose a side, and you have to choose a side that best represents your interests. And for me, that is the Democratic Party. I'm a Democrat, and so because I have a primary coming up on August 18, and in Florida we have what's called early voting, and early voting starts August 3rd. Look, I have a Democratic primary, so I need people to not only be registered as Democrats because Florida is a closed primary state, and in order to vote in Florida, you have to be registered with the party to vote in the primary. So I am hoping that, one, the people who are watching are not only registered to vote and have chosen a party, but will actually go to the polls and exercise their right to vote, because there are many people who are registered, but there are a lot of people who are registered who don't think it matters or who don't even exercise their right and go to the polls.
All right. The T is for teach. You touched on it a little bit, but can you reiterate on to the people that are unregistered and also the importance of voting?
Well, first of all, we have a country that is, ruled by three branches of government. It is the executive branch, which is the president, a governor, or a mayor. It's the legislative branch, which is either your United States Congress, your state legislature, or your city council or your city commissioners. And then you have the judiciary branch. And the judiciary branch at the federal level, of course, is the U.S. Supreme Court, or it is at the state level, your state courts, or it's your circuit and civil courts in most municipalities. And the average person doesn't understand what each role does. You'll be surprised at the number of people who, are voting for people because they either like them or they know their names, but they don't necessarily understand the role of the job. That's how people voted for Trump as president, because they knew his name. He was a reality star, or people knew Trump Tower, but didn't understand that with the president, a president is not only just a president of the country, but he also, should understand the Constitution, understand the law, obey the law, but also has the power to make war, and is also the commander in chief. And he's never served a day in the military and had no governmental experience. And we see evidence of that in this pandemic. We see evidence of that with the state that the country's in.
Okay, the E is for elections. You mentioned one of the dates. Can you tell us the date again for the early elections, mail-ins? Talk to the people about how they can vote. The mail-ins, the early voting, and any other items that can help them get their vote, get their souls to the polls.
So you know that in Atlanta, just 2 weeks ago, how the lines were very long, Derrick, and essentially people are having their vote suppressed, if you don't have proper identification. So I'm telling people to make sure that you have updated your voter records if you've moved or if your signature has changed. Don't give them any reason to suppress your vote, but more importantly, make sure that you participate in the process either by requesting in Florida, we call it vote by mail, or if you're in the military, request an absentee ballot so that you can exercise your vote by mail. You can also participate in what we call in Florida early voting, and early voting is from August 3rd to August 16th. Again, those dates for early voting are August 3rd to August 16th, and the actual election day is Tuesday, August 18th. And so people have actually 3 ways to exercise their vote. And also, if you request, we're in a pandemic, and today in Jacksonville, where I am right now, the district actually goes, Derrick, from Jacksonville, Florida, all the way to Chattahoochee, Florida. And that includes 8 counties and 18 cities. So I don't know if you've ever heard of Tallahassee, Florida, because I know that you're in Georgia, but, Tallahassee.
FAMU.
Of course, yes, FAMU is in Tallahassee, exactly, at HBCU, right. And so Tallahassee and Jacksonville are the 2 urban areas, but there are, 16 other cities that I did not name. And I can tell you that in Baker County, you have Glen St. Mary, Sanderson, and you also have McClenny. In Columbia County, that is Lake City, Florida. And in Hamilton County, that is Jasper, Florida. And Jennings, Florida, and White Springs, Florida. And then in Madison County, you have Monticello, you have Madison, Florida, you have Jefferson County, you have Leon County, you have Gadsden County, which is Florida's only majority-minority district with 5 different municipalities. You have Havana, Gretna, Quincy, Greensboro, and Midway. So Florida is vast, and that's a lot of cities. That's more than 250 miles that I have to cover. But the reality is we need people to pack their patience. We need people who are vulnerable and don't want to go to the polls to request vote by mail. And if they decide that they feel well enough, or their immune system is not compromised and they want to go to the polls, all they would have to do is turn in the vote by mail ballot. You can't do both. You'd have to turn it in order to vote. But I would hope that people will exercise the days that are available for early voting and actually go to the polls and vote during early voting, so that they will not face long lines or will have to worry about voter suppression. They'll have time to correct.
I appreciate that. We're here on a special edition of this HBCU Celebration. We're breaking it down, how to vote your best life. LJ Holloway, Edwin Waters College alumnus, running for U.S. Congress, the 5th Congressional District. LJ, before we close, do you have anything else that you'd like to add?
Yes, absolutely, Derek. Most people, brag on their HBCU, but I actually went to two HBCUs. I went to Howard University, and of course, I was protesting, and my grades weren't that great from protesting. We'll just leave it like that. And thank God for Edward Waters College, which is actually the oldest historically Black college in the state of Florida. And it is owned by the AME Church, which is the African Methodist Episcopal Church. And I am so very thankful for Edward Waters because when I transferred from Howard, I only needed 21 hours to graduate, and they accepted all of my hours. But more importantly, I was loved and nurtured by the professors that I had in the School of Business there. And one in particular was my mentor, was Dr. Mary Clay Torian. And, God bless the dead, but she really was a pioneer. She was one of the first women to work for IBM. She was a pioneer. And I had a professor who taught me statistics who also taught at FAMU, Dr. Jules King. And he would actually commute from Tallahassee to Jacksonville to teach that statistics course. And so I want to encourage and implore your listeners who have children or those who are contemplating whether or not to go to a PWI or HBCU. I really want to make the case for HBCUs because I matriculated at both. Of course, I earned my law degree from the University of Florida, but I just want people to understand that when you go to an HBCU, not only are you nurtured by professors who look like you, that barrier or that stigma of whether or not you're good enough is removed. They expect you to be your best. And I will tell you that when I went to the University of Florida, my professors didn't have any real expectation of me. And so I could coast through. And I will tell you that my studies were more rigorous at Howard and Edward Waters than they were in law school at University of Florida. But that's because my professors did not have an expectation of me. But at Howard and at Edward Waters, my professors expected the best of me. And I'll also tell you that when employers come to career services, when I was at the University of Florida, the employers came looking for Tom's daughter or Sally's son. But when recruiters go to historically Black colleges and universities, they are looking for minority students. And my friends who went to Howard Law School commanded larger and greater salaries and got better offers than the students of color who went to the University of Florida with me.
Hey, that's great. That's great. Blessing to be here. Oh, one other thing. Did you touch on your HBCU, your celebration that you do, your scholarship?
Absolutely. I'm like, I thought we had 30 minutes. And I'm like, you're rushing me, Derek.
No, I want to rush you. No, that's why I asked, did you have anything? I got all my questions. I want to make sure you touched on that.
Oh, you sure? I mean, that's my heart. That's my pride and joy. So you have come and done Derricknyms at the Celebration of Life annual benefit. Most people may or may not know that I am the president of LJ Holloway and Associates Inc., but I also award scholarships to students who major in health or science through the Celebration of Life annual benefit. You can find that page on Facebook or Twitter, and that's the Celebration of Life annual benefit. And what we do is we award scholarships to students who major in health or science. And I started that in 2007 because I had a brain tumor and couldn't walk or talk. And I knew 3 students who were going to Tuskegee University. And I knew that I could do more. And I wanted to do something formalized because few people realized that there were more African-American physicians, more African-American males in medical school in 1970 than there was in 2010. Can you believe that?
Wow.
And the reality is America is becoming more Black and brown, but there is a shortage of Black and brown physicians. And like I know, that patients have better outcomes when they have physicians who look like them because 1, there's a cultural difference, and 2, you feel more comfortable. Case in point, Black people who are physicians understand that if an elderly Black person say, I got sugar, they know exactly what they mean, right? And so a white physician may be perplexed, And if she said, I only had a little bit of hog maw, a white physician may be a little confused, but a Black physician knows exactly what hog maws are, right? So cultural differences do matter when you talk about patient outcomes, and we know that there are disparities in healthcare, and we know that not only are physicians underrepresented in the field of medicine, we also know that many people of color are either uninsured or underinsured, which is why having healthcare that is affordable is so very important. 45 is even trying to get the Supreme Court to overturn pre-existing conditions yet again. Although, we've gone through this before, 8 years ago, the Supreme Court upheld that provision of the Affordable Care Act. Here we are yet again in the midst of a pandemic when people don't have enough coverage. So that's one of the reasons why, those are just some of the reasons why I started the Celebration of Life annual benefit. And, that's why I encourage students to major in health or science fields, because with sickle cell, there has not been a new drug in more than 40 years for sickle cell. And have people who study science or who are in R&D, research and development, of course, they tend to research and develop things that are of interest. So that's why we award scholarships to students who major in health or science. So if you decide whether you choose to be a physician or a nurse, or if you decide to become a scientist and go into R&D, look, there's a place for all people at the table, and I encourage students to be their best selves. Oftentimes when I meet someone and they say they're a nursing student, I say, why not become a medical student? Or if you're a PA student, I say, no, go and get an MD.
Hey, it's a blessing. LJ Holloway, not the hard way, the Holloway.
Exactly.
LJ Holloway, like she said, she attended Howard, Edward Waters College alumnus. We celebrating HBCUs this week. The U.S. running for U.S. Congress, the 5th Congressional District. I go by the name of the Entertainer. Check me out on all social media platforms and even on Cash App. Like I tell people.
That's a shameless, Derrick. So, I didn't tell people how they can find us. Please, please, please.
Oh, let me bring that back up. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Website. Check out our website, ljforcongress.com, ljforcongress.com, and LJ Holloway. You can reach on all social media platforms and reach out to us. He's a genuine person. And like I said, it's a blessing. It's a blessing to have you. And like I tell people, I say, work on your skills. Work on your life. Because when people see you and what you do, it may be the only school that they ever see. And until next time, I thank LJ Holloway, and I thank you out there that's watching, and I thank the ones that will see the replays. I thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me, Derrick. And we didn't talk about honoree.
Oh, today's honoree. It's a blessing that I was going to stop today's honoree at one time. And I talked with LJ, and LJ was like, no, let's keep it going. And so it's been able to bless. We featured over like 1,700 people. And today's honoree came about because LJ saw my networking skills, and she said, let's do something. And what we were going to do, I wasn't vibing with. So I said, my spirit said, today's honoree, let's honor people. And so we've been doing it ever since. It's a way to give back. And so it's just been a blessing, And so
years, honoring 1,700 people. And, Derrick, I always tell you that givers get, and like I know, because you're always giving people like I'm always giving to people. And the more you give, the more comes back to you. And that's why your children are blessed. And your children's children will be blessed because we honor others.
Yes.
Oh, Derrick, my phone rang. Sorry.
Oh, no problem. But we're about to close out. It's been a blessed time. And keep doing what you're doing. I got your back like 8-track. And remember, LJ Holloway for Congress. LJ Holloway for Congress. Look up on our website, ljforcongress.com.
For you to see the crest. You don't see that Emma Waters crest, that Emma. Look, so I it's an Edward Waters Alumni Association shirt, and so I want to encourage your listeners who are products of HBCUs to give back to your institutions, to help institutions, and in particular during this pandemic, because there's so many students whose parents have probably lost their jobs and don't know if they'll be able to go back to school. And so we have to sustain our schools. Of course, I plan to go to Congress and, of course, fight for the College Affordability Act. But more importantly, we need to make sure that students who were already matriculating have an opportunity to finish what they started. So please give back to your historically Black college and university.
And that's why we taking time out this week to make sure we highlight our heroes, highlight our future leaders. And tomorrow, tune in tomorrow, we have Fort Valley State University graduate, Ozone Mayweather. He's an entertainer, a DJ, and a Brown builder. He'll be on episode 23 of Life Skill. Then on Wednesday, July 1st, we have my friend Dr. Hud, who was a professor at Tuskegee University. His name is Hud, so we calling it the Hump Day Huddle. You know, because sometimes you need to come inside and get that play so you know how to go down your way.
Okay.
Then on Thursday, we have a young lady named Candace Shaw. She's a Spelman graduate.
All right.
She has a business called Why I Hate Math. You know, she tutors people in math in person and also virtually. So check her out on Thursday. And on Friday, we had the ex-fat boy, Antonio, Big Coach Carter, coming to the live. He's a Bethune-Cookman University graduate. Awesome. He's lost over 150 pounds, and he has himself, I talked to him yesterday, he has himself down to 8% body fat.
Wow.
So we're going to feature HBCU graduates on today's honoree throughout this week. We're going to highlight HBCU graduates throughout this week on our various programs on the platform. And it's just a way to give back. And then, you know, the weeks to come, we're going to feature everybody, you know, no matter what the race is, the religion. We're just trying to get these stories out. But my spirit just said, hey, this week is HBCU. Ain't nothing you can do about it.
Exactly.
Ain't nothing you can do about it.
Exactly.
But hey, I appreciate you, LJ, and we're gonna end this broadcast on a positive note. Keep doing what you're doing, keep smiling, and everybody go out there and support her, and support her campaign, support the celebration of life. You know, if you, like you said, in order to get a blessing, you got to be a blessing. And right before the news, right before this broadcast, I was featured on the news. I missed the story, but somebody blessed me by sending me a message saying, hey, I just saw you on the news. So wow. WLTZ. So, hey, just keep putting in work, because you never know what work is going to work for you.
Exactly. For a better day, vote LJ Holloway. Early voting starts August 3rd through August 16th, and the election day is Tuesday, August 18th. Thank you for having me, Derrick Entertainer Hayes, who also gives people a word of encouragement.
Word of encouragement.